In this episode, I'll be assembling the keel and frames of the Amati Chinese junk kit. Since this is a simple ship with only a single deck and no complicated sternwork, this will be a pretty easy task. The keel and frames are found on a single sheet of plywood, along with the frilly pieces for a display cradle. I don't plan to use the cradle since the edges of the ply kind of look cheap and I want a slightly better look for the model. I will, however, save them and perhaps use them as a pattern for a hardwood version, minus those frilly things. The keel and frames are laser cut well and are held in place by just two tiny little bits of wood intentionally skipped by the laser. An X-Acto knife can be carefully used to sever these connectors and the parts removed. But be careful, the fit is kind of tight and it's possible to damage the parts during removal, as I did with this keel, breaking off a small piece where the plywood had a void. The plywood is a bit coarser than is found in more expensive kits or in RC aircraft use. Luckily, this little boo-boo will not show and is not critical to the structure. A bit of glue and a clamp easily put it back in place. The fold-out plan sheet shows the numbering of the frames. They are mostly in numerical order, but not quite, probably to be efficient in the use of the plywood. Before removing all the parts, it is a good idea to number the frames to avoid mistakes later. Having removed all the frames and keel, I give each a quick sanding to remove any leftover rough spots from the removal step. Here is the keel and waiting frames. I secured the keel in my building board and found the fit of the frames fairly secure but still a little bit wobbly. Double check each frame as you go to make sure it's square. On larger kits, I generally use a machinist square and or glue in a couple of pieces of square stock as extra support, but the simplicity of this kit doesn't really require that extra work. Since the keel was narrower than my building board could clamp, I used basswood wedges to secure the keel. The frames went in easily and quickly, about 20 minutes. Before leaving the assembly to cure, I make one last check for squareness using the old Mark I Mod 0 eyeballs. I also check the overall fairness of the frames, port and starboard, by looking down from above to make sure no frame was jutting out and picturing the lie of the planking in my mind. Some beveling will be needed on the foremost and aftmost frames, but not much since the lines of a junk are very simple. The whole assembly now sits and cures in a place where hopefully the cats will leave it alone overnight. Well, that was easy. Next episode will be planking and decking.